Okay, I think it should be good.
I'm doing like 15 minutes, and Emily's doing 15 minutes or so. And I don't know, I think questions maybe another 5 or so. The questions kind of lead from her section of this. We good?
Should be good.
Cool. Hey friends. Morning. Anybody notice it was snowing slightly this morning? So cheers. We could have played some Christmas music today. Should have. Jingle bells. Yes. Play the ultimate Christmas song. Rocking around the Christmas tree. Well, we'll start snapping to that song. He doesn't snap. He does this. It's really cute. Today to start off, we're just gonna ask. I'm gonna ask some questions. So feel free to use the space to think, to reflect, to pray, to use the questions that I'm gonna read over us. Part of our issue, I think, as a human, is it's easy just to go on autopilot in our life, and so as we enter into the space, sometimes the most important thing is just the preparation, the silence, the stillness, and often that's the thing that the Lord, I think, speaks to us the most in. Kierkegaard has this saying where he talks about how he ran out of things to say to the point that he became silent, and in the silence, that's when he found the voice of God. And I just think that's beautiful. So I want to read some questions over us. If you just want to take the space, then that's cool. Do what you need to do. Use the questions to kind of look back at your week and reflect if you want. And then Will's going to sing for us, and then we'll name the good together. So feel free to pray or whatever you need to do. But I'm going to read some questions for us. What's something you can look back this week and name as a gratefulness? You don't have to say it out loud. We can share those here in a little bit, but just think back. Where have you felt joy this week? What made you laugh? What troubled you? What was challenging? Did you notice the presence of God anywhere? Looking ahead? What are you looking forward to? As you look ahead, what's the first thing that's coming to your mind? Whether good, bad, something that makes you anxious? Now, in that moment, whatever is ahead for you, treat it with a spirit of open hands. Take on the words of Jesus where he says, we live today and let tomorrow come. How can you give the Spirit those things? Let me pray for us and then we can sing something together. God, we are here and we're yours, and that's enough. So however we're walking into the space, however I'm walking into the space, I pray that we can see each other, we can reflect, we can hear, whatever that means, whatever we feel towards that, about how you speak to us. God, I pray that we encounter you, whether it's in the smile of another person, whether that's through the scriptures, whether that's through the warmth in the room or the cold that's outside. I pray that we see you, we feel you, we experience you. And today we talked about making space for each other, and so I pray that we experience that. That you're always making space for us, and that we can make space for each other. I pray, thanks your name. Amen.
The world keep me warm. The needle in the compass pointing north. The beauty of the sea from the shore. Jesus, you are my peace in the storm. The hands that held me close when I was born. The chirping of the birds in the early morn. The evenings in the summer on the porch. Jesus, you are my peace in the storm. Jesus, you are my peace in the storm. Yes, Jesus, you are my peace in the storm. God, help us to reflect and use this time to remember the ways that you were the peace in the storm this week, the simple moments when we tangibly felt you and knew you and understood that you were good. And help us to just encourage one another in that, in this space. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, y'all. We can name the good together. What's stuff that may have come up just a second ago or something you've been holding on to? The good, the true, the beautiful. I'll start. Today's Tuck's birthday. So cheers to Tuck. We'll clap for you. Should have brought cake. Should have brought some cake. You don't want cake on your birthday? It's cake. All right. What else?
This weather makes me feel alive.
It's good weather.
I feel like I'm my most true self when things are dark and dying and cold.
The death speaks to me.
I just love it so much. So I'm very happy today.
It's good.
It's really weird how the house we bought a year ago has all these windows and we have like a bird feeder and I'm like a little old lady. I watch all the birds and I get really excited and I make everybody else come look at birds. But now that like winter is here, like it's here this morning, there's a whole different group of birds you don't necessarily see in the winter. And I can't remember what morning it was, but there's this like giant red-headed woodpecker like right outside, like 5 feet from me. And I'm like hollering at Andy and he's like, "This is not that cool." And I'm like, "It's completely cool." So I don't know. But what was cool is you don't see woodpeckers up. I don't see woodpeckers up close. But it was huge and you could see like how God made it speak to do what it does. And I was just like, God made purpose for everything. Even this animal that I don't come that close to. So I don't know. I thought that was
Oh, that's cool.
I think for me, like I had a hard week this week, but sorry, I don't want to get emotional, but and so I'm going through the Bama podcast with Abby and Jordan, and this week we listened to the one on the flood, and like the climax of the story is that God remembered Noah, and Abby, before they came over, she sent us an article to read that day. Well, they come over really early, so it was the night before, and I didn't read it. But that night, Walt was like awake all night, and I ended up reading the article, but it was from the Bible Project, and it was, if God remembers, does He also forget? And I read it, in the middle of the night, and I thought to myself, like, if I'm up for any reason right now, or Walt's awake, it's that I needed to read this week. So I'll read what was really good, but it says, but like all good things, this new creation life challenges us and forms us in unexpected, sometimes uncomfortable ways. We suffer loss, and we partner with God as we partner with God's redemptive work. Like the psalmist, we have our own questions, fears, and doubts, and we see the heartaches of this world. With the prophets, we ask, how long? And we wrestle to find comfort in the midst of our present circumstances by recalling stories of how God came through in the past. And then he went on to say, like, there is hope. God is above the creator, and a healer does not forget or abandon us. Instead, he remembers. And just, I don't know, thinking over the past year and a half of our lives, I feel like so many things, hard things have happened. But just remembering that God does remember us, and whether it was conversations with friends this week or that picture that popped up that I sent in the group, like just remembering that God does remember us, thanks, and that He sees us, and it's okay to ask, like the psalmist did, like, where are you at? Like, I don't feel your presence. And so I think that's sort of where I've been, and I just needed that this week, and even that reminder of just the picture of, like, it was a year ago, that we started meeting as Mosaic, and seeing the good in that there's been a lot of hard things over this past year and a half, but Mosaic has been something that's been really good for me. So that probably been
That's wonderful.
sense, but yeah, I feel like that even in the hard week, like God was just reminding me of His goodness, and that He does remember me, and He does see me, and it's okay to say, like, where are you at?
Mm-hmm. That's good. Thanks for that. What else?
Doing a research project right now, and I'm kind of writing a paper after my preliminary dive into what's already been researched and what's out there on adult, child, and parent estrangement. And I had a conference with my professor last week, and I didn't know how it was going to go. I didn't know if the paper I had written was good. I mean, it was a pretty long paper, and so I was like, I don't know if it's that good. I don't consider myself like a writer anyway, and so I was like, it's probably not good. The research is good, but the writing part, I don't know if I did a good job. And I went in and I sat down, and she was like, this is a really, really, really good paper. She was like, sometimes I struggle when students do research projects like this to get through the whole thing. And I genuinely enjoyed reading it. And I feel like that made me feel really good. This semester has just been really, really hard. And I think having that boost of confidence of like, this paper was really good, I wouldn't change anything about it, was really helpful. She asked me to present it, which is, I don't enjoy that, but she was like, would you be willing to present this in front of a class? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. But it does make me feel good that like it was good enough for her to want me to kind of present what I found and kind of what I uncovered. And she sent it to her husband, who's like a practicing therapist, which was really cool. I was like, I hope I didn't make any mistakes then, because he'll definitely call that. But he said it was also really, really good, and it lines up with everything that he's been taught. And so it was just really, really encouraging after such a hard semester. I mean, my whole time in that class has really been leading up to this project and this final paper. And so to get the reassurance that like I've done a good job on something that's taken so long has just been really encouraging. Like I feel like this semester is not all bad, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's been really good.
That's great. Anything else?
funny because you were saying that this weather like makes you happy, and it's interesting because like I feel like I've been walking. Sorry, I've been walking through a season of just anxiety and depression, and I don't know, a lot of fear. And when the weather changed, I started to feel happier again, and I was like, I don't understand that, but I feel like there's been a lot of healing. I feel like good conversations between people that have been hurting in my life, and sorry, it's just been really joyful and just good.
Good. Thanks for sharing. Good. Anything else?
I was supposed to work Friday night, and I don't never look forward to work, but night is especially hard. And I got sent home at like 11, which was like awesome. And I think like just being sent home and realizing like, oh wow, that was my shift that I have to work like once in 2 weeks. Like that felt like kind of comical, like a 3-hour shift in 2 weeks. But I just was honestly like kind of triggered of gratefulness of like, man, that was like in Denver, I was like crying as I was driving to work because I was having to leave like my 4-month-old baby, and like that was just really hard. What? Sorry, I don't know why I'm crying. I guess because I'm pregnant, but anyway, I was just really grateful that like we're here now and like reality is different, and that's not like something that's really like weekly. That's not something that's really hard for me anymore, and yeah, so. I'm also like really emotional right now. So. And I feel like just throughout this pregnancy, I've been not very grateful because I've been so sick. And so just like kind of coming out of that sickness, being like, oh wow, I'm like, I didn't realize the reality was so awesome right now. And so yeah, I'm just really grateful for that. And the finances are like huge stress and more, and that I can do for my daughter. So.
Yeah. That's great. Anything else? All right. Y'all ready? Let's do it. If you got a Bible and you want to follow, go to Genesis 18. We're doing Zimzum Part 2, or whatever you want to call it. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to do about half, and then Emily's going to do the other half. So we'll see how this goes. We also had the idea of me doing like 3 minutes, and then Emily doing 3 minutes, and then me doing 3 minutes. But we're just going to half it and see what happens. So this is the other thing with Mosaic is we want to help people use their lanes to serve each other well. And so that's why I asked Emily to come and help, because the second half of this, I felt like it was more in her wheelhouse. So she's going to help with that. So I think it's going to be really helpful. So Genesis 18, we'll read it in just a second. But Zimzum, Tzimtzum, Zimzum. It's a Hebrew phrase. It literally means to contract or condense. It's in the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is like a tradition, Jewish mysticism. Anyways, to Zimzum, it's a way of looking how God ushered in reality. That he had to condense himself. He had to create space for something else to come about. He had to lower himself down in such a way that other things can flourish. So in plainer English, it's just God was making room. He's making room for you, making room for me. So I talked about the example of Niagara Falls. You have all that power generated by all that water. But if you just pump all that power straight into your home and try to plug up your phone, it'll just explode. So you have to slowly condense it down until it's a a workable fashion. And it's exactly how God ushered into reality. So this is how the Jews kind of like conceptualize in a very mystical way the origins of how we're here. But I think this is actually really helpful to look at what it means for God to make space for us, which is what we talked about last week, and then how we in turn make space for each other. So I'm just going to intro that in a sense of how we make space for each other. So Genesis 18, verse 1. And the Lord appeared to him, talking about Abraham, appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. Lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. Okay, verse 1 was Yahweh appeared to Abraham. They're hanging out. And then he looks up, 3 dudes standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, leaves where he was with Yahweh to meet the 3. Bows himself to the earth and says, O Lord, if I found favor in your sight, don't pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought. Wash your feet. Rest under the tree while I bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. And after that, you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it, make cakes. Sounds great. Abraham ran to the herd, took a calf, tender and good, gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. He took curds and milk, and the calf they had prepared and set it before them. Stood by them under the tree while they ate. Stood by them under the tree while they ate. Not with them. They said to him, where's Sarah, your wife? She's in the tent. The Lord said, I'll surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself. It's really interesting. In the chapter before, God tells Abraham, same thing, won't bless you, and Abraham laughs. And in this chapter, in the next chapter, Sarah laughs. It's something to see. It's interesting. Sarah laughed, saying, after I'm worn, my Lord is old, shall have pleasure. The Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall indeed bear a child now that I'm old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I'll return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she's afraid. And he said, no, you did laugh. There's a lot there that we could explore. But for the Jews, this is the basis of hospitality. So that when you talk to in a Jewish audience, we talk about hospitality, this is the chapter they're going to go to. This is the basis. For the Jewish audience, this is the basis. For Abraham's hospitality, what it was is he's offering protection, shade, necessary amenities like foot washing, and a generous portion of food and drink. It's kind of a Jewish custom to provide a hospitable place, to be hospitable for people who are passing through, especially for their own Jewish people. In the Talmud, it even says that welcoming guests, welcoming the stranger, is greater than welcoming the divine presence. So hospitality is one of the highest values in Jewish culture. So when Abe is in the middle of a chat with God, verse 1, and he recognizes there's guests coming. He's in the middle of a chat. He recognizes some travelers are there. He excuses himself and runs off to welcome the guests. So to Abraham, hospitality is greater than his communion with Yahweh in that moment. You with me? He leaves where he was to go welcome the guests. Now notice the fact that in this chapter, the I's, the we's, the us, the thems, the me's are all mixed. Sometimes it's I speaking as God. Sometimes it's we. Sometimes it's they. Sometimes it's him. It's really strange. And there's a lot of scholarship behind it that's really interesting. But I think the point is this, that we have to notice the fact that the language goes back and forth. So Abraham leaves God to welcome God. Okay? I think that's what's happening here. He has to leave his position to encounter God somewhere else. He encounters God in the other. Okay? Abraham bows before him, recognizes that there's a whole lot more going on here, invites them to a meal and rest. And notice, I tried to point it out, is that Abraham does not join them in the meal. He lets them have the meal. I think this is just a pastoral point that was speaking to me. is that a place at God's table is often too much for us to imagine. And maybe that's why Abraham stuck back, was that invitation is just too much. And so he just lets the three kind of have it. So there's always something that's kind of holding us back from dining with God. I was going to show you guys an image, so I'm just going to pull it up on my computer here. It's by a Russian iconographer named Andrei Rublev. I think I've showed it to you guys before. He did it in the 15th century. It's called the Trinity. I'm going to show it to you guys. I was going to pull it up on the TV, but I didn't. So this is the Trinity. He's painting this image in Genesis 18. It's beautiful. It takes some time later to really sit with it. But just notice there's a little square here. Okay, that's hard for you to see, but just trust me. There's a little square here. Now there's a whole history behind it that's really crazy, but just here it is. Our historians think that it's a little glue mark. So they think that at one point in history, whether it was Andrei Rublev or someone that came on later, they glued on a little mirror there because the intention is that you see yourself dining with the three. They say that the purpose is that you see yourself being welcomed at the table, that there's room for a fourth, that the observer, as you're looking at this, you see yourself at the table with them. Now, it's crazy, but just study it. It'll blow your mind. Richard Rohr says this: at the heart of Christian revelation, God is not distant. He's not static. It's a divine circle dance. He's holding out the invitation to share at the divine table, welcoming you all the time. Jesus comes forth from that invitation, allowing us to see ourselves mirrored as a part of the table fellowship, as a participant at the banquet, and a partner with God there at the table in love and communion. I think that's the point. Now, we go back to the ideas that sometimes we don't make space for others. I think a lot of it stems from we can't realize that God's making space for us. Like, that's the generosity, is like God's always setting the table before me, even in the presence of my enemies, so I can set tables for others. So I think it starts there. Now, the majority of passages in the Bible, I think, on hospitality are usually concerned with like the ideas of like family or communion or having shalom together. The question then becomes hospitality for who or whom? I don't know. Which one is it? For whom? Hospitality for whom? For whom? Is that right? Thank you. The rub is hospitality for whom? It's really interesting. Like, that's our question. It's like, who's actually... You can bother both sides of the spectrum with that question. Like, on the more conservative end, you're welcoming too many people to the table. On the more liberal end, maybe you're not welcoming enough people to the table, you know? I think that scriptures are one long reflecting on that question. I'm just going to list a bunch of stuff that I think is helpful real quick. In the prophets, you know that section in the Old Testament that no one goes to? Real interesting stuff in there, I swear. There's a book called Amos. It's really hard, but I think it's worth it. At the end of Amos talks about the family of Edom being welcomed back into the family. Now, Edom is stemming from the family of Esau, who are like these big bad enemies of Israel. And Amos has the image of even Esau's family coming to the table. Very intriguing is that even those people. Now, think about Isaiah. If you have to give an award to one of the prophets who's the most inclusive, it's probably Isaiah. Isaiah's crazy. He's like talking about how there's going to be an altar in the midst of Egypt and Assyria, two other big empires that were against Israel. That even those people are going to worship Yahweh alongside of us. Think about Jonah. The whole message of Jonah is that the Ninevites are in. Not even just those enemies out there, but think about how they look at themselves. A lot of times the prophets are railing against the machine of how Israel is not taking care of each other. It's like Amos in chapter 5, he talks about denouncing his own people because they're leaving the hard work for the poor. They're not shouldering any of the hard work for themselves. They're leaving it for the least of these. Micah is attacking the chiefs of the house of Israel who are eating the flesh of the people and building Zion with blood. And it's like making hard work with the poor. You know? Isaiah condemns Israelites for making unjust laws, systematizing oppression, and depriving the poor of their welcome at the table. So it's like, I think this is the point. It's like that what Israel was supposed to be, the place of hospitality for everybody, for each other too. But God offers equally and exactly to all the other nations as well, even those people. So it goes both ways. Think about the person of Jesus. He's surrounded by others the entire time. Jesus states at one point in Matthew 8, he talks about how in the kingdom, there's going to be many Gentiles who dine together with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, in the culture of Jewish culture, you don't dine with others. There's a massive missing of the mark. With Jesus, like he's intentionally putting himself around the other. I think he's recovering the prophetic imagination, actually, that even the Israelites or the nations will come to the table. Jesus made space for the outcast, the Gentile, the sick, the prostitute, the doubter, the Pharisee, the Roman, the priest, the political activist, the political anarchist, the student, the dropout, the young, the old, the underprivileged woman and child, and the enemy. It's like the message of Jesus. You think about Paul in Ephesians 3, later on in Ephesians 3, he says, you can perceive my insight into the mystery of Christ. Like, this is pretty big. Like, what is the mystery of Christ? And Paul says it's that the Gentiles are fellow heirs, members of the same body. He could have said a lot of things there. And he says the mystery, the deepest reality of Christ is that the Gentiles are fellow heirs. Like, you see the point? Like, the story the whole time has been the outsiders are welcome to. So we talk about Zimzum. It's creating space for others. God's creating space for us. Like, that seems to be the story the entire time. God making space for us making space for each other. Like, that's the story, I think. So we create space for others. God created space for us, and we know why. God zimzummed, we zimzum. And God has always kept zimzumming. He's always creating space. And I think that's our push, is like we want to create space for others. And this is the last thing I'll say, and then Emily can pick up. The Roman Emperor Julian, it's about 300 years after Jesus. He ordered the establishment of hostels for transients in the city. And he refers to the example of the Jews. That's what he says, in whose midst no stranger goes uncared for. So even in the worst of times, every Jewish community had a society, like a social establishment that provided food and lodging for traveler without discrimination. Like, what if Mosaic was known in similar fashions? That there is no outsider. Like, an outsider about Mosaic would say, yeah, there's actually no stranger goes uncared for with those people. Like, what if we followed the first divine hospitality moment with Abraham? Going above and beyond, leaving our position with God to create space for the other. What if we followed along the Hebrew prophetic imagination, both our enemies and those that we love and agree with, and we take care, like we create equal space for both? What if we listen to Paul and we realize that we dine with the other, the Gentile, we're actually dining with no other, because there's no others here. I think this is a beautiful thing for us to gather around as we zimzum for each other. So there's my portion. Just going to dump that for you guys. I don't know how to transition, so we tag team.
You gotta tag out.
All right.
Tag in. I didn't play sports. I don't know if that's how you do it, but that's what I just did. Okay. Do they do that in like boxing or wrestling or whatever? Yeah. Me and Blake should have worn outfits today. So I'm picking up with this and just like, what is that idea that like zimzum feels very like ethereal to me. What does that look like? Like, what do we do with that? How does that flesh out today and tomorrow? Because I think that's where the hard part of being a human and being a Jesus follower is I think a lot of us can hear something and be like, that is really good. And that's as far as it goes. Not because we don't want it to go further, but because we're like, how do I take that further? Like, how do I can hear that. Okay. Make space. What does that mean? How do I do that? How do I know if I'm doing that? And so I'm here. I appreciate Blake saying that this is my wheelhouse. That is a high honor to me, and I love that. But I just want to talk about, so I looked up, I had to deep dive research Zimzum because Blake taught really well last week, but I'm like, I still don't know if I know what this means. And I was trying to tell my friend about it. I was like, yeah, it's like Niagara Falls. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, it sounded better when Blake said it, but that's what it is. And so, but one of the definitions I saw was making space for creation to flourish. And I loved that word because when I thought of that, well, if I'm talking about my task now is to make space for others to flourish, that like triggered something in my heart. And I was like, and that's why we have to teach on this, because there is, this is all practical, and there are like, I could easily, and I am going to tell you like, here are actual things to do. Like this is the actual fleshing out of this. And we need that. But there is a heart behind this. Like there is a posture behind making space, and you can go through the tasks of it. And if that heart that is not there, flourishing will not happen, because that's dim sum. It's not just actually making space, but it's making space in order that someone flourishes. And that's a posture. And so that's our intent today, is like, not only that you'll walk away and feel like I know how to make space, but that I'm going to make space so that someone else thrives. So I hope we're good there today. Being hospitable, that's the word we're talking about. That doesn't just mean that your home is welcoming. It does mean that, but it really more so means that you are welcoming, that like your presence and who you are is a welcoming space. It does mean that you allow people to come into your physical space. So we're going to talk about that today. It's what Abraham practiced. People came into his physical table. They sat at his physical table, and that's part of this. But I want you to imagine, as we talk today, your invisible bubble, because that is also how we make space, is letting people into our emotional and mental and spiritual space. And that's the harder space to let people in. There's a lot of vulnerability that is required to have this posture, because it's hard enough to let people into our physical space, and it's even harder to let people in to that emotional space. So I want you to imagine your circle, and I think some of our circles are naturally, just because of who we are, maybe a little bigger than other people's circles. But imagine your circle. I want you to like right now, like see your circle, like however big that feels to you. I need you to like physically imagine what that looks like, because I'm going to push you to think about what it means to let someone into that. So what keeps us from making space? Because none of us are really good at it. I mean, some of us, even people, this is not an extrovert or introvert thing too. I want to like clarify that right now, because it's not if people are outgoing, then they make space. Because again, this is about people thriving and flourishing. So there are roadblocks to that for us. And most of the time, I think we like to say it's a lack of money or a lack of space. You know, like maybe you don't even have a table in your apartment, and so I can't host. I don't even have a table. I got, an end table, or I just normally eat on my lap on the couch. I have one bowl for my cereal. There's no more bowls here for anyone else. We say that like that's the thing. Or I am a poor college student. I can barely feed myself. How am I going? Like, who is coming over for ramen? Like, that's all. It's not even the good ramen. It is from the package. It is not even the one with the M. That's the best ramen. We have cupo noodles, not the best ramen. So I get it. That is that's a real reality. But space and money is not the reason you are not inviting people into your space. It's not. That's a really lame excuse. And we use it, but that's not the reason. Most of the time, it's three things. It's a lack of margin in your life. It is insecurity in your heart, and it's some bad belief about God. My computer. I need it, on your phone, I need to figure out how to make my computer not do this. Where's my button? There it is. Okay. So most of us, the problem is that we don't have time in our week for making space. We are so hurried. Even if you do have time, like most of us have physical time. It's not that like literally every minute is accounted for. If every minute of your day is accounted for, then you really have a problem. But most of us have free minutes. It's not that we don't have actual time, but it's that our spirit is so hurried and so worn out and so frantic that those minutes we're not even acknowledging them, because like, even if we do have, that 15 minutes. It's like, well, this is my only 15 minutes. So I have to use this because this is the only 15 minutes I'm going to get. Or we have one free evening and this is my only evening because every other evening is completely filled. You see, we don't have that margin. And you all know, like, you're like, I know, that's how I feel all the time. We've all done that. We've all sat down on the toilet and been like, I think this is the first time I've sat down all day. Like, that's sad. Like, that's a sad life if your time in the bathroom is your only alone time. But we live that way. And so margin is our first task, is we have to build margin. Jesus models this for us. I'm following Jesus in this the whole way. He was very open to being completely thrown off of his plan. Sometimes he literally chose the wackiest way to go. So that, it's like, oh, I need to go heal this kid. I'm going to take it through the middle of the square where all the people are, and I'm most likely to get stopped. And then he does get stopped, of course. And he's like, I'll just take a minute to heal this person real fast. That kid can win. He was very open to this. Like, he built margin. And then sometimes he did the opposite, and he built margin by like, I'm just, I know Lazarus is dead. It's fine. We'll take a few days. We'll go the long way. It's all right. He just built this like rhythm into his world where it was slow and unhurried, and he welcomed distractions, but he actually built in space. And we have to start there. We cannot make space for people that we do not have. And so if you want to follow God's best way and practice making space, then you have to find it in your week. That's our first task. Another problem is so Jesus has this time. He builds this in. He makes time for distractions. But I also want to say he also made a lot of intentional time for his people. So because we can swing different ways in this hospitality pendulum where we make time for no one. It's all about us and our precious little time that we have, and there's no time for anyone. And we can swing all the way over here where it's like everyone all the time, always others, never anyone, never my people, never me, just always whoever. I'm fully accessible all the time. But if we watch Jesus, he was never always fully accessible. So hospitality doesn't mean that you are available all the time to anyone, always, everywhere. That's not what this means. Because if you watch Jesus, there's a lot of times where he says no to all the outside people, and he brings it into his people, to the disciples. And then there's even more times where he brought it in even smaller than that to his real dudes, like his bros, And so that is hospitality as well. That's making space as well. We need margin to be distracted, to be surprised, to bump into somebody and make space for that person, to have someone show up out of the blue or call out of the blue and need us. We need space for that. But we also need intentional, purposeful space that we've created for our people. Okay. So the goal in this is not to find a perfect balance. I think that's a task that the enemy just distracts us with to make this feel really burdensome and horrible. Because if we try to find balance where it's like, okay, I'm going to give equal parts to my family and equal parts to others, and then equal parts to surprise people, that's never going to be possible. And it doesn't work because we have to use some wisdom here. Like, this is those wisdom chapters. That's what this is for, is to use wisdom to say, you know what? Different seasons call for different things. There's going to be some times where your people are on fire and they need you and they need your attention, and you give that to them and you say no to everyone else. There's times where you are the one on fire. Jesus pulled away. One of my favorite stories about Jesus is when he was teaching. It's like in Matthew. He's teaching on the mountain, and his disciples are like, "Yeah, we're getting ready to go." And he scurries off real fast beforehand and goes across the river before anyone can even know it. And they're like, "Where'd Jesus go?" And it was such a stealth move. But Jesus was caring for his own soul in that moment, And he was saying, you know what? It's okay, for me to take a moment to get my footing again. So this is not about finding a perfect balance, but it's practicing wisdom to know what's the need. And in my season right now, we have school-aged kids that I'm teaching them also to practice hospitality. So sometimes the way I'm practicing hospitality right now is with 9-year-olds coming into my home. That's not as fun. I'm going to be honest. I really thought I was going to be one of those cool moms that was like, oh my gosh, I love slumber parties. But I'm like, you all are kind of annoying and you need stuff. But that's part of what my season looks like. But 4 years ago, we were having like ragers all the time and playing. I mean, my version of a rager. I should probably preface that. I didn't go to college, so my version of a rager happened when I was like 24, and we had like 2 kids under 4, so it was fine. But that means we stayed up all night. We binge watched the whole second season of Stranger Things. Like that's what this looks like to me. I ate a lot of Doritos, but I'm saying it looks different. I literally was in knots early, like a year ago when we started transitioning into that season, because what hospitality looked like was no longer what I couldn't manage what we did before. And it was eating me up because I was like, no, I'm supposed to be able to accept 30 people into my home 3 nights a week. I'm supposed to be able to go until 2 a.m. in the morning. That's what we did. That's what we've always done. But my season changed, and that's okay. And you know what? 4 years from now, my season is going to be different again. So practice wisdom. And if sometimes, someone dies and your friend they need a little extra care. So maybe it's not your designated night to have someone over, but now it is. That is practicing this space. It's this wisdom. So do not seek balance in this. Seek wisdom and think about what does it need, who needs to flourish, and what can I do to make space for that right now. So we all need to make margin. The other thing is that insecurity. This is where the introverts really come alive in the room, because my middle son, Judah, he is an introvert in comparison to Molly, Kay, and Shiloh, especially. And he's really shy. And I told Corey, this popped up on a memory. So it was really like in my social media. So it was really timely. But when he was like 4, we were at a playground in Portland. And I wrote this a few years ago, but I saw him like continuously try to go up to a kid in the playground and then walk away, just scared, but wanted to, because his sister literally can like come up to anybody and make friends. And he wanted to do that and he couldn't bring himself to do it. And I think that we all identify with that. Like wanting to put ourselves out there and just feeling real scared. Like, how do I not be weird? Or what if they don't like me? Or what if I get rejected? Or you know what? I just don't even care if I have people around me. Some of us are those people. And I wrote this thing about, I was worried that he might grow up feeling disqualified from hospitality, from engaging with others, from making space, because he's shy. That the way that God knit him together and built him to be a little more quiet, a little more nervous, that he might be broken and not able to do what God is saying best. And I think we've all felt that before, that we see this in the Bible, that this is God's best way, but it like goes against like who we naturally are. How do we do that? And I was really scared that he would feel disqualified, but I was even more afraid that he would feel exempt. That because of him being a little more shy and a little more nervous, that he didn't even have to worry about it. That engaging with people, he could cross that off his list. He didn't have to do it. So that was even worse. And I think a lot of us, whether it's being shy and more introverted, or whether the insecurity is my home is not as nice and I'm nervous to bring people into that, or I'm a little awkward and I don't know how to carry a conversation, or whatever it is, we all have that insecurity that like makes us shut down with people, that we're letting it, either believing the story that it disqualifies us, or we're believing a worse story that we're exempt from it. And both of those are stories. It's not truth, because there is a path for you as a awkward, quiet, shy. There's a path for you to engage with people and to make space with people. There's a path for you when you don't have the home that you want, or you are sharing it with other people that are not really cool, or whatever that story is. There's a path for you. And it doesn't have to look like someone else's to be right. But it is God's best way, whether we're an engaging extrovert that can't get enough, or whether we're an introvert that like we can only take so much. There's a path for you to do this. The The last one I will, before moving on to some practicalities, that roadblock is going to be that some bad belief. And the right belief here, the good belief, is that God's best way for you to live is with people. It is surrounded and engaged and connected, and it's intimate and it's dirty and it's all up in there. That's the best way. I know it because Jesus did it. He modeled it for us, like Blake said, with all the different kinds of people. So I'm believing that to be true. But what I know, and the bad belief that I'm personally all the time confronting right now, is that people screw me over and over again. And it doesn't feel that good. And it's easy to start believing, like, is this God's best way? Like, is this really the best thing for me to open myself up just to be taken advantage of, or to be hurt, or to be let down, or to be disappointed, or to be manipulated, or whatever, fill in that blank. We've all been there. We've all let people in to only be hurt by them. So some of us are there where we're struggling with that belief of, like, I don't even know if I want to go back down this road. Maybe we've been down it and we are like, I get the idea to be true, but in practice, it has really proven not to be the best thing for me. I get that. I struggle with that. And I'm very scared. There's some of us, though, that need to acknowledge that we just really don't like people or care that much. The ones of you laughing, I'm assuming that's you. But I'm being serious. I know that there are people in this room and all over that are like, yes, I love people. And then they're like, I couldn't care less if I ever engaged with anyone ever. Like, we don't see the value in it, just like fundamentally. So both of those are bad belief. I just want to acknowledge that, because fundamentally, people are valuable. They are God's prize. Like, we are his, like, and we are the inheritance. Like, it is valuable. We're built for it. We're made for intimacy. We're made for connection. So, like, that's some bad belief that we got to throw out. We also have to tell ourselves a new story, that the hurt and the wounds that we are carrying, like, it is still the best thing for us to be with people. And for all of you carrying wounds from people, I'm sorry. I am. But I sit here right now holding my own wounds and fighting to believe that is the best thing. And it is. It's the only thing in the world that has ever been able to hurt me, and I still crave it. It doesn't make sense. But that's how I know it's God. It's his upside down kingdom that does not make sense. But it's good. And there's a quote from John Mark Comer that he says, and I probably shared it because it's like been my life quote for the last few years, of, you cannot heal fully what you don't experience in the right way. So if people hurt you and you're holding wounds, those wounds are not going to fully heal until you experience community and connection and intimacy again in a way that doesn't hurt you. But you have to be vulnerable to do that. You have to make space. So bottom line, the best way for us to live is with other people. And making space for people is helping heaven to touch earth. And ultimately, making space for people is healing and wholeness for you and for them. So, how do we do this? What does this actually look like? I kept this fairly simple, hopefully, but to really want to give you guys handles, because I have always struggled with this, and Corey has really helped me. I want to be like, I'm not an expert, but I've had a crap ton of people in my home for many years now. So, and I think, like, supernaturally, the Lord has, like, gifted me in that. And I want to own that. But Corey tells me all the time, he's like, just because it's intuitive to you does not mean it's intuitive to other people. And so I try to, like, okay, let me like pull out of myself and say like, what is my thought process here? What am I doing? So that's what I'm trying to give you. And so I want to talk about 3 spaces in which we can be hospitable, okay, in which we can make space. First, home. Whether that be your apartment, whether that be your mom's basement, whether that be your own home, whatever that is, whether that be a shared home, because I know some people are living with family, been there, done that, we can be hospitable. So the first thing that we're going to do is set the space. And so what this means is like, clean up, like be prepared. So, and I want to tell you about this though, because Corey and I, cleanliness is not one of our family values. Just going to be honest. Fun is, togetherness is, and normally that means the opposite of cleanliness. So it's not, and I bump up against that all the time because I get pissed off when my house is messy, and I'm like, gosh, why is there a fort in every room? But I'm like, because we value fun and we build forts, and I let the kids destroy everything because we value fun. We don't value cleanliness. So most of the time, if you all come over, you know there was a mad cleaning to be done right before that happened. But we do it. Why? Because space matters. Like, people, you need to think about how it's going, all the senses, how it's going to smell, sound, feel, touch. Like, think about that. Think about someone coming in your home. Are they going to feel like, oh, I walked through the door, it barely opened, and I had to like climb over stuff? That's not good. That doesn't feel like someone prepared for you. That feels like, ooh, was this the right night? We don't want people to walk into our home and think that, right? So we want people to feel welcome, that like, we want people to have this idea of like, wow, they got ready for me. They were ready to receive me. So clean up. But I'm going to say this. Be authentic. Because Corey and I, if you come over to my house, there are most certainly going to be toys somewhere on the floor. There's probably going to be a half glass of Diet Coke on the table because that's mine. It's going to happen. There's probably going to be a couple dishes in the sink. There's probably going to be Play-Doh on the kitchen table. Why? Because that's authentic. I have 3 kids that are actively living in my home. There's going to be remnants of that there. So don't feel like to receive people in my home, I have to create a facade that we don't live here. That my house is perfect. Like, we don't have stuff. This is how it is. We're not staging a home for a buyer. We're welcoming in a friend. So be authentic with that, but prepare the space. Okay? Make sense? So we're going to set the space, thinking about that. Also, like, if you're having lots of people over and they might be coming in at different times, play some music, because no one likes to come into silence. It's weird. No one wants to be the one, like, they're like, am I supposed to be talking? I don't know. Like think through, would someone have a question about this? If your house is big and knowing where the bathroom is not intuitive, make that the first thing you tell them. I do. I'm like, hey, if you need to go to the bathroom, it's the first door on the left. Like, because no one wants to be the one that's like, shoot, I have to pee. And like, no one wants to be that person, be like, where's the bathroom? And then everyone looks and is like, they got to go. Like, don't put that out there. Let people feel comfortable. That makes sense? Offer a drink. Like, be ready to receive them. Okay? Set the space. The second is share the gift. Now, like alluded to this, I think that when people come into your home, the intention should be to give them something. Now, this doesn't mean a present and a bow. I mean, it could be. I would love that. But it doesn't have to be. For me, the gift that I'm always going to share with you when you come in you're going to eat. Like, when you come into my home, you're going to eat. That's my gift. I love it. It is not burdensome to me. I love cooking for people. I'm fairly good at it. I really like when people like what I feed them. I love making people feel like full and happy. So like, no matter what time of day you're coming over, you're going to get fed at my house. That's my gift to you. I'm always going to share that. That does not have to be your gift. If you do not cook, if it is not joyful for you, if it is going to make you feel stressed out as they are walking in the door, do not share that gift. You can, if you invited them over to dinner and you hate cooking, order takeout. It is okay. Because the worst thing in the world is to invite someone over to your space, to put yourself through something incredibly stressful, and then for them to feel that as their first hit when they walk in the door is an apology that like you're behind or that you're stressed out. That's not good. What is your gift? Are you an amazing conversationalist and like you can like keep the conversation going, do that. Do you have an incredible game selection? Play games, but offer something to somebody. Like, find your gift. Like, do you have you're amazing at watching movies and whatever it is, booze. I don't care. But like, what's your gift? Share it. Offer somebody something. And it needs to be authentic to you. It's not a right or wrong here, but share the gift. Be ready to give it too. This is the thing. Sometimes Corey's like, hey, someone's coming over. And I'm like, great. So because food is my gift, I always have things ready at any given moment. At the very least, you're going to have some pizza rolls because those are always full stocked in the freezer. Like so if you come over and you have pizza rolls, know that Corey told me like 10 minutes before you got there and I popped those babies in. But like pizza rolls are always going to be there. Coffee, always going to have it. So like bottom line, I'm always ready for someone. I have 3 boxes of cake mix at all times in my cupboard because like ready for a cake. But that's just because that's my thing. And so I am anticipating that I'm going to be interrupted, right? I'm ready for it. So what's your thing? Are you ready for it? Okay. I get popped up about this, guys. I'm really excited about this. This is my favorite thing. Last thing. So we're going to set the space. We're going to share the gift. I couldn't come up with another S. I'm really sorry. But if you have one for this, shout it out. But we're going to read the room. There's just not an S for that.
Survey the landscape.
We're going to survey the landscape. That's hilarious. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to survey the landscape. Guys, read the room. Okay, and this is going to bump up against some people, and I understand that, and I'm prepared for that. So if you're right now wanting to fight me internally with an argument, that's okay. I'm going to acknowledge it, and we'll get to it. Let people leave if they want to leave. So if you've invited people over to your home, and you had dinner, and cooking was your gift, and you slaved, and they ate, and then it's like barely 7:00, and they're like, okay, so thank you so much for leaving. Like, don't bully someone into staying at your house. Read the room. Survey the landscape. Let them leave if they want to leave. Don't shame them and be like, oh, I made dessert. If they want to go, let them go. Like, read the room. Let people do what they need to do. That one doesn't hurt so bad, but this one does. If they want to stay, let them stay. That's hard. I know some of you are having arguments. It's okay. I'll get there. Let them stay. My favorite thing is when someone comes and they eat at my table and then they themselves, by their own volition, is that the word? Walk over to the couch and settle in. That's my favorite thing. So I'm like, they are ready. They are here with me. Like, let's go. And I'm reading the room there. You know what? When someone's coming over your home, sometimes the thing you have to let go of to make space, the thing you need to pull in is your own schedule and your own comfort. Because you have invited someone into that space. And that's what you need to pull back to make room for them. Because I'm not saying, and this is what I'm saying, I am not saying that your kids' bedtimes or your early wake up time for work or your homework that you need to do is not important. It's not what I'm saying. But if you have been intentional to invite someone into your home, then that might be something in that moment, for that season, for that space, that you let go of. Because if someone is willing to be in your space, not theirs, and they are snuggling into that couch, they need something from you. Because that's not normal. You know that? Like, think about how many other people's homes that you have felt comfortable enough to like post up. I'm assuming for most of us, it's not a big number of homes. So if someone is willing in your home to post up, let them post. I don't know if that's why you say that, but I'm going to say that.
That's a great phrase. Hashtag.
Because, and then keep watching. If they keep talking, they need to say something. So keep it going. If they grab a blanket and start dozing off, don't wake them up to tell them it's okay to go home. Let them sleep. Because if they're making an active choice to doze off on your couch, chances are they don't feel safe to do that at their own space. Whatever they're walking back into in their space is not restful for them. So let them sleep on your couch. It's okay. I had a girl in Portland. She's a college girl. She lived alone. And she struggled with depression and she struggled with anxiety. And so going home was not always the safest place for her to be. So you know what she did? She came over a lot of times after work and she took a nap on my couch every afternoon. That's all she did. Because it was a safe space for her to be alone. So it wasn't safe for her at her own house. And that's okay. That is okay. So let people stay and linger. And if that's not something you're able to give on that night, then don't have someone over on that night. But if you are inviting someone in, make plans. Be prepared for them to linger. Okay? Great. So moving on quickly to these next ones. Sorry, Blake, I don't know what time it is. All right. Work or school. I feel like both of these work for that. Maybe not for school. I don't know how college is. I only went to 1 year, and I'm really going to be honest, I wasn't very present. But work. So we can be hospitable at work because, right, remember, hospitality is not about necessarily your space. It's about that imaginary bubble. And a lot of us don't like to let people into that bubble at work. Work is not always our people. But we're called to it. So 3 things we can do there. These have no alliteration. Ask people questions and remember what they say. Because we're all really good at being like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Or hey, da, da, da. And then that just flits out of our minds. That's not being a really good friend. That's not being hospitable, because a hospitality is taking that further, and we're making space for people to flourish. So we want to remember what they say. We want to be able to follow up that, hey, they are, they're getting ready for a da-da-da event this weekend, and ask them about that on Monday, right? So we're asking good questions and remembering what they say. And I'm going to go over actual questions that you can ask people that are better than, hey, how are you doing? Or what'd you do this weekend? Like, there's better ones than that. So we're going to ask people questions and remember what they say. We're going to listen and lean in. A lot of times at work, and school, we get there and we're like, I am here. I'm going to do my job, put my head down, and that's it, right? There's other things going on around people. There's always someone talking. And we can get like, oh, I'm not going to be involved in that. That's not what I'm doing. Or maybe that would even distract me from what I'm doing. But remember, we have margin to be distracted. So listen and lean in, because I've noticed that at work, I have a lot of people that are willing to talk about something and they just want someone to hear that, right? So if someone's talking about how, like, man, oh my gosh, I have so much going on. Like, I'm so stressed. And that just feels like they're just saying it to the room. They're not just saying that to the room. It's like they want someone to bite on that. And I know a lot of times this is our skepticism can rise in, and we're like, oh, well, they just want attention, or oh, they're that's what you got to pull back to make space, because we don't get to judge what someone's motivation is for that. But in what I hear is that someone needs someone to listen. Someone needs someone to lean in. They need to be seen. They need someone to know what's happening in their life. A lot of times I hear that when people ask, if I have someone that's constantly asking me questions about myself, it triggers me to wonder, are they wanting me to ask them a question back? Because maybe no one's asking them those questions, So listen to that. Listen to what are people actually saying, and what are they not saying? And lean in. Don't just put your head down. Lean in. This doesn't mean you have to get into every single conversation with everyone. Again, we're practicing wisdom, but lean in. Last one, be awkwardly kind. Awkward. Like, we should be leading the way as believers, as followers of Jesus, in kindness. And it should make people uncomfortable. Like that, I wholeheartedly believe that. Like, for instance, I ran into a girl at work the other day. She comes in and she looked hot. Like, she looked so good. We were doing an event. She looked so good. And I could have just said, to be normal, you look really nice tonight. That is not what happened. because she actually took my breath away. Like I was literally, and so I did. I was like, I just went with it. I was like, you look so good. And and then I just kept going on. I was like, you literally look breathtaking. Like it actually physically made me gasp. And she was a little like, but you know what? I'm 100% certain also that hit a lot harder than if I just was like, kind of kept my cool and consoled myself and said, you look nice, like a normal person. Be awkward. Like Jesus, like if you go read scripture about how God talks about you, it is obscene. He just like keeps going with all the things that he loves about his people and all the ways that he has knit you together. He freaking knows the number of hairs on your head. That's weird. Let's follow him in that. Let's be awkwardly kind. Let's go over and beyond to like make people feel built up. If someone does like kill something at work, like lead the way in pointing that out and making that making something small big. That is worth your discomfort to make someone else feel really built up. Like, isn't that a win? Isn't that worth it? I just think so. So be awkwardly kind, not just kind. That's not what we're after. That's for the normal people. Here at Mosaic, we're going to be awkward about it. All right. So that's work. Third space. If you don't know what a third space is, I'm church planner here, so it's still in me. Third space is basically anywhere else aside from work and home that you might see people. This is not just like the gas station, because well, maybe some of you are hanging out at the gas station. I don't know. I don't feel like many of you are the hanging out at the gas station type, but if you are, that's your third space. For me, my third space would be like dose when I'm bored at work, or basketball practice at the elementary school. That's my third space right now in my season. For you, that might be cooler spaces than that. Or maybe still dose when you're bored from work. I don't know. I do see Olivia there sometimes. So think about that. Like, where are your other spaces where you are around people? Now, most likely, this is not where you're engaging people, because we don't do that very well in our third space, but it's where you are around them. But we want to take back that third space and engage people, make space for people there. So first way to do that, get off your phone and look up. That's hard. I know it, because most of the time these third spaces are the exact places we are trying to not be approachable. We are trying to look distracted because we do not want anyone to approach us. But we are reclaiming that. Again, we're practicing wisdom. It does not mean that if you go into dose and you actually need to get work done, that you have to be this way. But think about it. Use your wisdom. Look approachable. Get off your phone. Look up. Oftentimes, making space starts with the actual appearance of openness. If you were like this, I'm not coming up to you. If you were like this, I might. Right? Okay. Second one is start the conversation. Most people are not going to be, we're awkwardly kind. We're also just awkward, plain old awkward. And we're going to get up and start a conversation. If I'm at basketball practice next week, I need to look at the person beside me and be like, hey, who's your kid? My name's Emily. What's your name? Okay. That also might mean that, hey, it's the kid from high school that we've not talked to since high school. And now we both are here, and like, get up, walk across the coffee shop. Go talk to them, engage. The next thing is follow up next time, meaning that maybe at the coffee shop, this doesn't happen quite as much, but for me, at basketball practice, it definitely can. It's not that like, oh, Thursday, I did talk to them, check that off, never have to talk to them again. We tell ourselves that though. No, I'm going to follow up and be like, hey, how was your week? I'm going to say these things. Hopefully it's not how was your week been, because I'm going to give you better questions than that. But we're going to follow up. We're going to keep trying to engage. We're going to keep making space, because this is, again, remember our goal is to flourish. What a gift if for an hour at basketball practice, you made a moment for someone else to be seen and feel whole. What a good use of that hour, right? Better than scrolling through Instagram. Yeah. What if at the coffee shop, you thought you were just popping in for like a quick afternoon jolt? You actually saw the barista in front of you that you see a couple days a week when you go in there, and you actually took a moment to like ask them something about themselves, not just how their shift was going. Yeah? Okay. So quick few questions that actually you can ask people that are better than how are you doing. All right, and I'm just going to rattle these off. If you want them later, I can like send them to you. Because basically general questions that we normally ask, they shut conversations down because it's basically like you answer it and then there's nothing else to say. Like, how was your weekend? Good. That was done. All right. Yeah, like we've all been there. We're like, okay. And we just like, it's like, I don't know how to keep going. So we're going to ask questions that make people talk and that maybe would make them say something that we can jump on with. Okay. So, and these are weird. Guys, I'm really leading you into awkwardness. It's going to feel weird, but it's okay. We're going to ask, hey, what has the highlight of your day been so far? That's weird. It's a better question than how are you doing? So what's the highlight of your day been so far? What have you been learning lately? What are you passionate about? Or what passion project are you getting to work on right now? What's one of your goals? What fictional character do you most identify with and why? What's been weighing on your heart and mind? And then follow up with, after they tell you, how can I help with that? What's your story? Or if you really want to unlock a dark box, what story are you telling yourself? These are all questions. And maybe I'm not saying that, the barista, you're not maybe going to start with like, hey, so what story are you telling yourself right now? Like that might not be. Truthfully, this came from a talk at a leadership conference. Those questions, it's a like, I don't know. She's some like expert in like connectivity. And she talked about this, but it was so good about like levels of questions. One of them also that's a deep level for like, it's, do you know what lights people up? Like, think about that. Think about the people in your, like, I should know what lights Corey up. And that's making space. I need to work to make space for that. Do I know what the person that I shared at work, do I know what lights her up? How can I make space for that this week? How can I make space for that to happen for her? So it's asking those questions. If you don't know what the answers to that, ask questions about that this week and make space for that. Passion and optimism are gifts that we can all give with a good question. We can share that. That's what helps us flourish, to put that wind in our sails. So find out what lights them up and make space for that. So last, Will's going to come and play. And I have 6 reflection questions for you guys. Hopefully you knew that, Will. I'm sorry. Okay. He's like, I'll figure it out. And I would encourage you to write these down and give space to them in this moment and throughout this week, because these are real practical questions that I would encourage you to actually answer. Because, like we said, being hospitable, making space for each other is a holy privilege. And it really is the best way for us to live. So I hope that you make space for this. Number 1, what is it in you that you have been believing disqualifies or exempts you from making space for others? Number 2, who are some people that you interact with regularly that you can be more intentional to make space for? Number 3, what is a gift that you can share when people come into your home? Number 4, what are you most afraid of or intimidated by when it comes to the idea of hospitality? Number 5, what is one thing you will do this week to make space for someone else to flourish? 5 or 6. I don't know where I'm at. What does it mean for someone to make space for you to flourish? And I asked that one because I think sometimes it's hard for us to know what would make someone else flourish, but when we can answer that for ourselves, it might spark some ideas. Last one. Who has made space for you? Take time this week to specifically thank them, not thank God for them. Be awkward and thank them and share with them specifically how it made you feel. You all were made for this. And it is the best way for you to be. That's it.
Thanks, Emily. All right, y'all. Just gonna give you a few things to think about. I hate to use the word announcements because it feels so, I don't know, boring. Thursday dinner at our place, 6:30. We're gonna do. Make sure I get my dates right. All right, so this Thursday, 17th, dinner at our place, 6:30, whatever. Hopefully it's not freezing. 24th, the next Thursday, Thanksgiving. But this Sunday, next Sunday, the 20th, we're gonna do a breakfast in here. It's like a breakfast Thanksgiving type thing. So we'll figure that out. How to make that work. I'm hoping we'll do something fun with Thanksgiving on that day, but it's not gonna be like a typical Sunday. We'll just eat together. We'll skip that Thursday because of Thanksgiving, and then the 1st that's crazy. December the 1st. That's the next Thursday. We have 4 Thursdays in December until Christmas. We're gonna try something new. The 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd. Those are the Thursdays in December. One, it's in light of all these Zim talks. We're trying to make space for each other in different ways than we've been on Thursdays, but we're still trying to work out all the kinks there. So I just want to let you guys know. So this Thursday, we'll do our regular thing at our place, dinner, fire, all that jazz. We'll skip one, and then we'll start something new the 1st through the 22nd. So that's our Advent series, and I'm looking forward to that. So Advent's going to be fun. I have some things I'm dreaming of. So anything else anybody needs to say, or I'm forgetting? All right, cool. Cheers. Zim.
Christmas music.
I need you to learn some Christmas songs. All the good ones, like.
I want the indie Christmas
You can do some really, just like all minor keys.
dirges. Play some fugues.
O Come Emmanuel.
I actually did that one last year. I wrote an arrangement for it in Denver and made it like really dark.
There's a spooky version of
I like O Come Emmanuel,
It
actually.
was minor and it was like honestly it was Bible.
There's one version of O Come Emmanuel that's like
Yeah, O Come Emmanuel's fun.
oh, we do the Sufjan Stevens version.
Yeah, come on. I like him.
Old Sufjan.
Doing choir stuff in college, Christmas concerts, like actually made me a big fan of like the really dark side of arrangements and Christmas music.
I read a guy that was talking about liturgies for Advent, and he said that he hates when churches sing "Joy to the World" for Christmas because he's like, there's nothing like an Advent. Advent's supposed to be a season of like waiting and darkness, and like there's nothing joyful. Like like the season is like not joyful because Christ has not come. We're celebrating at the end of Christ coming. That's when you can celebrate after he's born. Like Advent's like a season of waiting and longing.
We're gonna do atheism for Lent this year. That'd be nice.
Do an honest Christmas, and then we'll do an atheism for Lent.
The Divine Magician. Really kind of feel about it.
Really?
Like
I haven't read it.
the depths of like his like I get like the overall gist like what he's trying to say. And, like yeah, I think that's really good. But then like his points and stuff he pulls out, it's like it's about like original lack. It's like his way of looking at
Is that original sin?
yeah, it's the original sin. It's like expounding on original lack and the fact that pretty much it's called the divine magician because saying like the whole thing's gonna help us in the beginning. Like it's getting to the point like God himself is never gonna be thin. It makes us whole, and that's why Jesus says, my God, why do you forsake me?" It's because there's a lack within God himself. So it's like really, really out there. I'm like I'm giving it like let me get to the end of the book and see if that research. Yeah, I'm like man, I don't know if I'm following with you on it. But like the idea of it, I really like the fruit.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? All that stuff.
God, the idolatry of God, he talks about how Christians have largely just substituted God for sex.
Yeah.
Instead of pleasure and career, here's God.
Yeah, and I'm on board with that line of thinking, but then like when he gets into it from like God doesn't exist. There's a lack within God. I'm like, it's like
I just need to think about
yeah,
that.
let me sit. Like, I really like you, so I want to like
I
get
may
you out.
disagree
Yeah,
with
but and he just says it so bluntly. It's like that was the radical thing about the cross. Like it got him so
lacking
bad.
gold.
Yeah. So maybe if you could read the book to me.
That's right, yes.
More,
It's like I need the book and then I need you to like talk about it.
yeah, and maybe I need an audio book for us.
And then I'll decide if I.
Yeah. Sweet. You still thinking dinners in December?
Since there's 4,
That's it, but
may just try to find. What's everyone doing? Homes.
yeah. Okay, is that multiple people at all? Not just like everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a better way to make it manageable.
Yeah.
Rather than just like go do dinner. It's like, hey, here's 4 homes.
Yeah.
And let's
Yeah, because it'd be like, hi, Randy.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I think
So,
They kind of introduce you to some of what it is.
Yeah.
To get January.
yeah, for sure. Sweet.
That's where I'm sitting.
Yeah, that sounds, honestly, that probably sounds easier for people too than the original plan.
Yeah, because then it's like find someone. So
Yeah.
it's like this way, it's like
It's kind of planned out too.
it sections it down. If you do 4 homes, then it's
Yeah.
Like a great idea.
That sounds good.
You like bend the wire,
even less than that.
Yeah.
We gotta go. I mean, Amy and Noah for lunch. So we gotta head out. But have a good weekend, man.